various initiations, all of which require nerve in the face of some formidable obstacle. All fairy stories are full of this. And so life itself throws out all kinds of reasons for supposing that we are faced with something serious instead of something playful. And I want to discuss with you a few ways which in Western history this obstacle has been thrown out, and how we today are bamboozled by these obstacles. In the history of Western civilization, there have really been, in the past 2,000 years, two dominant mythologies. One has had a long run and the other has had a fairly short run.
Shit, let's see.
But they are both
Let's see how hard
ways
this
of
is.
terrifying you so that you won't see the point.
That's not what I wanted
But
to put on.
at the same time, they are perhaps not merely negative things, but challenges, barriers of the same kind that a guru would offer. For example, in the study of Zen, each koan is referred to as a barrier. And if you can pass the barrier, you see, you get in. But the function of the teacher is to put the barriers up to see how you'll react to them. So, in a way, we could say that the two great mythologies which have dominated the Western world in the past 2,000 years are two barriers. The first, of course, is the Christian mythology. And in the Christian mythology, the individual is made to feel
with fucking Alan
that
Watts.
he is strictly on probation, that he does not really belong, that if he is at all a son of God, he is so by adoption and grace.
I don't even know what I'm listening to right now.
He isn't really one of the family. Let me explore the theology of that a moment. In Christian theology, God has only one son. The monogenes, or the only begotten Son of God, who is the second person of the Trinity, the Logos, the divine idea of itself.
Oh, I don't get rations anymore, I forgot.
The Trinity constitutes a
family. It's terrible. I don't even want for save meds, just give me rations.
Because all, for the Greek mind, and it was the Greek mind that molded Christian theology,
did I bring this bit?
Meaning entirely depends on the structure of the Greek language. And Greek, in common with all Western languages, and indeed also Sanskrit, from which it is derived, has a sentence structure in which there is the subject, the verb, and the predicate. And we can't make any sense without those three things. We have to have an I love you or an I know you sentence for there to be any love or for there to be any knowledge. There must be the lover. The lover can't love without having a beloved, and the lover doesn't relate to the beloved without the relationship of love between them. So there you have the subject, the predicate, and the verb.
I don't know if I can cook meat right now. I'm
so
trying to listen to what he's saying.
Greek ideas, the very inner nature of reality of the Godhead itself must be threefold, following the structure of Greek thought and Greek grammar. So, in this way, the inner life of the Godhead is completely self-sufficient.
Almost missed that.
There is the Son, the object of God's love, so that God doesn't need any created world of finite beings as the necessary object of his love, so that he can be love. You see? So then, the created world is something extraneous. It's something that the Lord threw off in a fit of exuberance. And although
ambient music in the background is really good.
He doesn't in any way depend on it. He, in a sense, fathered it. But he fathered it out of nothing. It had no true mother.
It really fits.
And so in a way it's an orphan. And the relationship between the creator and the creature in popular Christianity has always been the relationship between the king and the subject. And the relationship between the king and the subject is very, very estranged, because the king, in the archetypes of kingship which existed in the Near East in ancient times and upon which this theological imagery was originally modeled, the king was really afraid. He always appeared in the throne room with his back to the wall. He didn't stand in the middle of his people and say, you know, and look around at everybody like that. He stood with his back to the wall like this.
Yeah, I might die.
It's funny how all altars and Buddhas and things have their backs to the wall.
Well, it's too stubborn to heal right now.
Because there you can't be stabbed.
Oh my god.
And you have your guards and your henchmen on either side of you.
Oh, I should not have
And
put
all
it
the
away.
people prostrate themselves, because that way
Oh,
you can
that's
watch
a
them
wall.
all. They can't see you and you can see
Oh
them.
no.
So you're safe. And that's the imagery, you see, which has given us our Western conception of God.
I should have brought
Of
a
the
great
father,
sword.
who
I haven't
whose
used the
children have
lance in
become a little
forever
bit too
though.
much for him. He's had too many. And they have to be kept in their place.
Yeah, get rid of the little guys. At least he's,
So
you know what?
he's a little
You just
bit
want to
tight.
stand there?
And so the rules are set up. Yeah, you just do so and so and so and so. And you must feel grateful for having been fathered. You're a miserable worm. And therefore, inwardly, because without me you might not have been. You owe everything you have to my having produced you. And you are a debtor.
Right.
And because
better
you're a
than I
debtor,
thought.
you have a duty. Duty is the same word as debt. Debit.
It's a duty.
You owe life
Oh, I'm
to
such
me,
a,
who
I'm
produced
such
you.
a kid.
Although I won't admit I had a great deal of fun doing it.
Oh.
And so you must all crawl. Now, you see, that conception of our relationship to reality
There's so many raptors.
has been the popular idea for centuries in the Western world.
They're pretty tanky on.
So
Oh my
that
god.
you never
Pretty
really
tanky
knew
on high rank.
where you stood with the authority. Because the authority gives you the
Dead.
impression
Never mind.
that you are so
They did last
bad
for a while.
intrinsically
I might get
that
high
at
rank.
any time you ought to
Velocity
be
armor.
punished and eaten up.
I really
And it's
like
only a matter of mercy
Velocity
that you're
in
not
this
being
game.
eaten up.
the little blue sheen of it's pretty cool.
So
Little scale
the
mail.
prayers of the Christian church are full of the idea, "O Lord, we are not worthy. And since it is only of thy great mercy
Get
that
this
we continue to
Velocity real
survive
quick.
at all, we humbly beseech thee," etc., etc.
That's the Velocidrome. I thought there was one. He is.
Going
I
around
see his
with
body.
that feeling about the
You son of a
nature of
gun.
reality, that it
Well,
is
I might want to carve this
watching
Velocidrome
you
real quick, honestly.
all the time, that you're always
Oh
on
my god, he's
probation,
gonna kill me.
like
Look
a
at this.
released prisoner.
Oh my gosh. Thank you.
And therefore there is an all-seeing eye
There's so many of them.
at every moment of the day and night surveilling you much more efficiently than any big brother could watch you through tiny TV cameras in your bedroom. I know a friend of mine who is a devout Catholic, and in her toilet, but she is
Oh my
different.
God.
She has a sense of humor.
That's scary.
And in
That's
the
high rank
toilet,
Rathalos.
you know, it's an old-fashioned one. There's a tank and a pipe coming down to the
I'm gonna have to
jar.
face him in my skivvies
And
soon.
there's a little placard on it with a big eye
Land and sky.
painted. And in Gothic letters underneath it, it says, "Thou God seest."
That's gonna be a fun quest.
So always, everywhere, according to this mythology, there is the eye of the paternal judge watching you. Now, what can you do with a situation
He's
like
still
that?
coming around to kill me.
If that's the way things really are, you don't know whether this Lord has a sense of humor, and whether you can say to him, "Hey, look, don't take such an advantage of me like that." Turn down that light a little. Close off your eyes sometimes. You don't need to be all that particular. You know I can't do anything to you. I can't knock you over. Why do you need to bug me all the time?
I probably should have gone to 10. It's more fun this way.
Attitude is too much.
Oh my god.
That's
As I get
people
murdered.
couldn't stand it.
I'm fighting the camera over here.
You know, 600 years of it was enough.
Please
And,
stop. Oh my
became
gosh.
intolerable.
That Velociraptor's a
Really
hero.
intolerable. Because everybody knew they were sinners and that they were doing all the things against the rules in the book, and nobody could possibly put up with it. So the only thing they could do to relieve themselves of this horrible father figure was to make out that the universe didn't have a father at all. That it was really an orphan.
It's like 1, 2,
Not
3.
even virgin born. It didn't even have a mother. In other words, in order to escape from the mythology of a conception of ultimate reality, which was much too intelligent and much too nosy, people had to invent a conception of the ultimate reality that was completely
Oh, he was still in
banal
here?
and dead. So the second
We
Western
gotta finish this
mythology
quick, Velociraptor.
is the mythology of the mechanical universe, which is a fluke emerging
I think he's landing
from a
soon.
process of absolutely blind energy. And you must notice the language in which the great thinkers of the 19th century thought about the world. Freud, for the basic psychic energy, used the word libido,
I ain't dumb.
which in
I'm gonna go sharp there real
19th
quick.
century Vienna was exceedingly uncomplimentary. Libido, blind lust. And so in the same way, the science philosophers of the 19th century talked about the world as being based on brute force, unintelligent energy, and worked out a conception of man
Shit.
as a really rather unfortunate natural fluke. Consciousness, reason, and indeed also the passions and feelings and desires of the human heart were nothing but the end product of a roulette wheel of natural selection.
He just... Yeah. He just one-shot me.
It's a
I think
most curious paradox that
I think I was missing a little bit of HP. I might be able to survive one hit.
who denied the supernatural origin of man and who insisted that man is simply a part of nature, one of the members of nature, nevertheless set up a state of alienation between man and nature without precedent. I am a part of nature. I am something that nature fluked into being, but nevertheless, this fluke is something that nature doesn't care about. It doesn't care about my ego and its future. All that is important to nature is the species. The individual is irrelevant.
Yeah. I can get down with that.
At the same time, this philosophy
As far as the
arose
world goes.
when we were becoming conscious of the sheer magnitude of the universe. And it took the first impression of this vastness as a pretext for making little of human
It's the
beings.
ego
And
that
saying,
separates
what do you matter in this huge cosmos?
humans
You're just a
from-
little fluke. You're just a little nothing at
Other
all. This thing goes
species.
way on beyond all imagination. And therefore man is just so much fungus on a rock. And a very tiny rock at that. In other words,
Shit.
it took the
Step down
standpoint.
Get out of here.
Let's set up a scale between two
Probably
limits.
where Raslos is at. Let's be real.
We will, and this is the traditional Western opposition. On the one end of the scale to the left here, you have matter, the inert, the clay put into shape by the potter. On the other end of the scale, you have spirit, which is intelligence. And these are what the mathematicians call limits. And a limit is something you approach, but you never actually get there. Now, what the 19th century mythology did was to think of all things towards the limit called matter. It said, in effect, there is this dead material stuff.
Oh my God!
It is energetic, but the energy is unintelligent. It's a kind of roaring mechanical energy like fire or electricity or so on. It is not intelligent. And everything is really that. What we call human intelligence and consciousness are merely complicated forms of this primordial energy. And
got it.
They are nothing but that. In the same way, we are evolved from lower orders of animals. And I can trace my ancestry to a protoplasmal globule, Pupa says. And, that's what you really are. You're only a complicated protoplasmal globule.
You're right.
Now, do you see the intent behind this mythology?
Protoplasma globule.
The intent is
You know
to
what that
deprecate.
is.
The intent is, as we say now, to put down the human being, because the human being felt that hitherto he had been put up too far in the wrong way. You are a child of God, and the Lord loves you very dearly, but, that's just insufferable to be put up in that way. You have an immortal soul. Your life is endless, but it can very well turn out to be a life of endless agony when you fry in hell. And that was a very serious threat to both Protestants and Catholics. And so it's much better, much more comfortable
Doesn't he start
to
here?
have a dead universe than a living universe so
Oh, there he is.
everlastingly threatening. So then, the mythology of the 19th century
The raptors just
under which
flood
most of us
in.
still operate.
Where'd they all come from?
Because we operate under it because it has become so plausible. The science out of which
No one allowed
this
in here.
mythology arose has been so effective. It
You've
has
done it
produced
now, you're
such
all
a
in this
marvelous splash
same
of
line.
technological marvels
Oh,
that
you've avoided it.
its point of view, or the point of view of those scientists who started the whole thing going,
They're lucky there was
has
a
become
wall there.
amazingly persuasive and convincing. After all, if I can reach into your brain with a very, very subtle instrument, and I can poke about inside and press there, and suddenly, on a certain point when I press it, a world of memory comes to life so vividly that you see it before your very eyes.
Oh.
I remove the instrument, it vanishes.
Ah.
I touch
He's
another
dead, too. That's the worst part
You
about that. He's
experience-
dead.
intense pleasure.
I'm mad about that one.
Absolutely unbelievable pleasure. I remove it, the sensation vanishes.
We're gonna have to wear armor.
Every
if
time I
hire
touch
this.
inside, you get a sensation
Maybe
externally
we'll
of
do it with
intense
low rank
reality.
armor, huh?
And I say, after all, I was only just pushing things in your brain. You see what a push-button thing you are?
I mean, that was really my fault.
That's it. I can just
I was
poke
just hoping
around
he'd
and
die
you
at
can
the
see
end of that
anything.
little volley.
But all that's happening is I'm putting a little electrode or something on certain parts of your
I go
brain.
this
That's
way.
all you are, poor fish. You're just that
I
kind of a
go this
sensitive
way.
sponge inside your head bone. Well, that gets very persuasive. You see? And people
remember I
are
was just
therefore in a
confused,
position,
'cause
they
on
are
the
prejudiced
mini-map it looks like
to
it's going
favor
around in a circle.
a mythology
It's more like a U.
that will make out
That little dark green bit. Oh,
that
forget you.
you are, after all, nothing but
So
something
I
or
used to
other.
think I was gonna have to go through like a
Nothing
loading
but
screen
a kind
or
of
something.
complicated neurological jello.
Get off of me.
And that point of view, as
Chris?
I said, has become enormously convincing.
Let me get out of there.
It's plausible today. Whereas the old point of view of God the Father and all the angels isn't plausible. It seems kind of weird in relation to what we know about the state of the universe. Now, what we have to see is that both of these points of view are equally mythological. And there's no more reason to take one than the other. And that what these points of view
Where are you running
reflect
to?
are nothing other than certain attitudes
out of my way.
to living. Now you see, if you want to live in a way that always is saying, I think that life is disgusting.
I think you're a
Supposing
terrible
you want
person
to
if you're looking like
deny
that.
being, then you can always describe it in ways that are offensive. You can always say playing the violin is just scraping cat's entrails with horsehair.
Kinda.
That puts it down, and you say, and you say people who play
over
golf,
here.
they're a bunch of idiots who go out on take a walk, and they hit a stupid little ball with
Yeah.
sticks.
It's kind of golf.
Or that
He's not
people
wrong.
who like music are just a bunch of idiots who sit around and go out of their minds listening to a lot of complicated noises.
Pretty much.
See,
I
there's
should probably
always a
heal.
way of talking about something to make it sound terrible. Equally, there's a way of talking about something to make it sound great. Now, what do you want to do? Do you want to live your life in such a way that you're always saying to it, do you want to, is that a good way to conduct things? Or do you want to live your life in such a way that you say, come on, let's go. You see, let's swing this thing.
He's like, oh shit, he killed all my Goonies. Let me go back here so more
On the
can
one
spawn.
hand, you see, you're always in tension
asshole.
against it. Do you remember I pointed out to you in this morning that the person who's anxious,
He just wants to get back by the
constantly
door.
anxious, is the person who is
He lost
resisting
the
the
upper
flip-flop
hand.
ability of things. Life is vibrating. It's going blip, 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 blip all the time. The anxious person is
God, the
accustomed to
Goonies.
that. Because, you might do it too much. I don't want to blip like this. It makes me feel nervous. Stop it. And so, as he puts his weight on this blip, he goes like this. You see,
It's rough out here
so
without
instead of
armor.
saying, come on, let's blip. See, let's go.
Especially
And
fighting
do this
raptors with a
thing.
lance.
So in exactly the same
Why
way,
are
the
you
person who
standing
wants
in
to
the
say,
door, bro?
Well, you are nothing but
Get
you're
out
nothing
of
but,
the door. I'm trying to get these carves, low key.
And they're just a lot of
Don't jump back into the
you're a
door.
bag
Oh
of
my
plastic
god.
blood, basically with a few bones.
I hate all of you.
And that person is doing the same thing, you see, as the person who's putting pressure on the flip-flop ability of things, and so he gets anxious. And the person who does this,
Lots of them's kind of cool looking.
he
I really
wants
like
to
them.
say, he's always, look, think about your friends and the people who are philosophical and enthusiastic materialists. They're always going to pose themselves as a certain kind of hero. After all, you're just a dreamer, but I face facts. See? I'm a hard-headed realist. And I'm
Velocitron,
as a matter
or
of fact, I'm
Clary,
an intellectual
please.
porcupine. I have
Get the
my
fuck
prickles
outta
out all
here.
over the place. Because
I should just
I'm
kill
the
you.
kind of person
You
who,
can try
in the
again.
academic world at any rate, is full of rigor. I ask, what precisely is the evidence about this?
I can't see you, bro.
And I'm analytical. And I'm, believe in, I don't like woolly and vague thinking.
Yeah.
I like
Still
it
got the
clear
card.
cut. And you can see that porcupine's bristle going right through like that. See, well, this is a personality type who wants to play that role.
I'm meant to gather some
Whose
special
message in
mushrooms.
saying all this jazz is, I'm the kind of person who is
Oh,
all dry
Screamer
as a
City.
bone. But I believe that that is strength. And that's reality. And another kind of person says to him, oh, you are intolerable. You're so dry, you're so dull, you rattle. You don't have any juice in you. And what we need is juice.
I could go for some juice right now.
And we need flow. We need lilt and rhythm and gaiety, you see. So that's an opposed mythology. And that's another character part you're going to play. But so we've got to consider these are games, you see, as I tried to show you earlier. The kind of roles we play are the kind of games we play. So, but the question is, which is the optimal game? Certainly we can't do without some prickly people, because life is prickles and goo.
Prickles and goo.
And it's basically gooey prickles and prickly goo, but the gooey people are always trying to make out that it's only goo, and the prickly people are always trying to make out it's only prickles. Now we do need both, see? But the question is fundamentally, which game works better? The game that resists the vibration, the flip-flop, or the game that goes with it? Obviously the game that goes with it, that cooperates with the general scene, will be a longer game and a more amusing game than one that totally resists it. Although, I said totally advisedly, because it's great fun to resist it at times. See, it's just like when somebody massages you, you know, and they're really expert and those fingers are just vibrating like this on your back. You can give and just go woof. But it's also fun sometimes to tighten your muscles against it, so as to feel the full impact of this thing, see? But what I want to, the real point I want to get across is that what seems to us the hard-boiled common sense of a mechanistic view of the universe is nothing other than a myth. You don't have to be taken in by this, because there is no more solid argument that that is the way things are than any other argument about any other way things might be. Now, it goes like this, you see.
Need some armor.
Again, think of the idea of limits. We'll take different limits this time. We'll take one limit on the right hand here as consciousness. Extreme, lively sensitivity. And on the other hand, we'll take the opposite limit, which is geological. The stone, the blind energy, the electrical force without any consciousness whatsoever. These are observable things. We see the living human being on one extreme, and we see the stone or the fire on the other. Now, our 19th century mythologist wants to describe this limit in terms of this one. He wants to say that consciousness is nothing but a very complicated form of minerals. Why can't you go the other way and just as easily say minerals are a very simple form of consciousness? That works, doesn't it? I mean, after all, here's this mineral. I knock it, and it says that to me. This is a rudimentary form of consciousness. This thing inside is not making a noise to itself, because that requires ears. But in some way, this thing is going to itself. It's shaking like that. And that's its consciousness, its response, its resonance. It isn't totally unconscious, but its consciousness is extremely simple. Now, you may think I'm spinning fairy stories, but is that any more of a fairy story than to say that your consciousness is nothing but chemistry? I mean, you think you're conscious, and that you have this high and mighty state of affairs, but actually, of course, if we look at this very realistically, all this is just colloidal substances bubbling around. See, both that story and the other story can be made to seem equally fanciful. But the question is this: if I say about the gong, look, my friend, I respect you because you are a little bit conscious. See, you relate to me. You're kind of a younger brother, and then there's something endearing and warm about this attitude to things. Whereas if I say, you're just a piece of metal, and as a matter of fact, I'm just a piece of metal too. That's a kind of insult. Now, the people who believe that are really suicidal maniacs. They want to put themselves down. They are against their own life, and they take a great pride in being that way, and they call it being realistic. And I'm only saying it's a better gamble to take it the other way and say the best thing you can say about it, that this is a living being, but not so much of a living being as a snail or something that actually wanders along and wiggles. So you see, the pressure upon us of the whole mythology of the 19th century, the whole attitude of putting down the universe because the previous myth had been too uncomfortably alive, is simply a way of looking at things. Let me give another illustration of the same thing. If you study the various forms of life from the standpoint of natural selection, you may come up with a rationalization for everything. Somebody wants to know, why do butterflies have eyes on their wings? Some butterflies. Well, somebody scratches his head and says, oh, well, there must be an explanation for that. There's an explanation for everything. Why is there an explanation for everything? Because the universe is really a tight engineering job. So, why do some butterflies have eyes? Well, it so happened that some fluke of a butterfly once got an eye on its wing, and birds would avoid it because that eye looked at them and it was just too much. So those butterflies that had eyes on their wings bred, whereas the butterflies that didn't have eyes got eaten up more easily. Although some of them had other alternatives, because of not having eyes, they were invisible and the birds couldn't see them. And so more of that kind survived, although those with the terrifying eyes survived, and so they didn't get eaten up either. So it tended to multiply. So it's just a perfectly easy, simple explanation of why butterflies have eyes on their wings. Of other things, some birds with extraordinary plumages, which look so obvious that anybody could catch them, any cat, any hunter. No, they survived because they were so attractive to their females. And so they bred very well. As a matter of fact, this isn't true, they didn't. And
Hello?
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 What's up?
What's up?
My mom's coming.
Just beat Risk of Rain.
Oh, yeah?
Did a hella good run.
What do you mean you beat it? Is this like a short game, or?
Yeah, it can't. It's the fastest I've beaten it is 30 minutes.
Oh, yeah?
But it's a game where the minimum is 6 stages, but there's like no map. 'Cause you could keep replaying by going through like this loop in the game. It's called Deja Vu. So if you wanted to get to like a specific area, you'd be able to do that.
Oh, okay.
or visit certain areas or
Yeah. So it's like a speed run type thing. What kind of game is it?
what?
What kind of game like I guess what do you do?
It's a open world game, and every time it's randomly generated. It's the same maps, so nothing changes on the maps, but where the items are placed are changed.
Okay.
And it's all RNG, and you spawn in on one point, and you just kind of have to like explore and find this teleporter, and then you go to the next stage. Well, as you go along, you kill monsters, you gain gold, then the gold you use can buy the chests that are on the ground, and they drop an item for you.
That kind of sounds like I used to play this game called Cosmic Break,
Oh yeah,
and it had a kind of like an adventure mode in it, where the main game essentially was you basically had it was like a gotcha game in essence, and you would get like mechs, and it was like a 15 versus 15, and you
oh
would
shit,
outfit them with different guns and shit. And then but then you could take your mech, like you would level your mech up,
yeah,
and you could take your mech in like this kind of adventure mode thing where it was like a survival mode, I guess,
oh shit,
where you go on like one map and you just clear like map after map after map. Like your goal was to get to the portal. I mean, it had a boss at the end. I think it's been a long ass time since I played that game, but I feel like there was an ending, but it was long as fuck. And you would basically just clear maps. Like you would go to the end, find the portal, or fight the like mini boss or whatever. Like I don't know what you were explaining. That's kind of what I pictured.
mm.
Got